Welcome to another episode of Wealth Beyond Numbers. I'm your host, Dennis Corral, and we're continuing to be with our guest, Francia Corral from Francia Corral Family Law. And today we're going to have another interesting topic, which is having a team of people as you go through the transition of getting divorced and the importance of it, and what are the things that you may want to look for as you make this transition. So, Francia, let me just tell you a story of a client that we helped a year ago. She got divorced after she's been married for 20 years, and she never worked. And her husband took care of the finances. He ran the household expenses. He took care of everything from the financial aspect. And even as they transitioned to retirement many years later, when it came to receiving the pension, the Social Security, and the investments, he handled it all. But then when this marriage ended, the spouse, who's our client, basically received an inheritance or lump sum and the quadro and the distribution from the assets, from the division of the assets from the years they were married. And she was at a place where she had no idea how to structure her finances in order. So we help her set up a budget. We help her create a structure for her. We help her understand her income needs as a new woman, as a single person, living in a new place now because she ended up buying a home. And it made a huge difference in her life. It gave her a lot of peace. But in that process, I also connected her with another professional that helped her create a will because she didn't have one at the time. And I didn't connect her with a family law attorney because I didn't know you then. But it would have made a lot of difference to have a team of people for her sanity, and to provide her peace had she started with that process early on. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about having a team of professionals. So in your experience, and how important it is to have a group of people, and what are the individuals that you may want to consider hiring or having on your side as you transition to divorce?
So I firmly believe that it takes a village, and sometimes that village, has quite a few professionals in it, and it should, with a client like that, for example, you would definitely want, if that were my client, and I have had clients like this in the past, I would connect them with a financial advisor if they weren't already working with somebody. And sometimes I might even send them to get a second opinion, just to ensure that they're making the most out of what they have. Because now they have, however big that pool of money is, they have a finite pool of money that they now need to support themselves with, get through retirement with, and whatever the case may be. That might also require estate planning, what happens next, and that may also, require mental health support, so this would be a situation where maybe I would send them to refer them to a psychologist or a coach. So yeah, it is important to have a team.
Yeah, you thank you for bringing that topic, because money is very limited. I always say to clients now that $1 million is not what it used to be 10, 15 years ago. And nowadays, the average CD rate is less than 2%. However, the S&P 500 has averaged over 30% in interest, in average return over the last 3 years. So keeping your money in cash is no longer an option for someone living off these savings anymore, especially if you're choosing not to work. So you have to make the most of every dollar that you have, and which is what we do and how we help clients. But what are the things that when you're looking for a professional, as you're adding to your team, I would imagine you have to look for an accountant to help you. I would imagine perhaps a forensic accountant. What, in your experience, are the type of professionals that you always want to consider having in your corner when you make these transitions to divorce?
So we work very closely with forensic accountants many, many times in divorce cases, because the forensic accountant is the person who looks at the financial picture, tells us what's there, and helps us figure out what is the best way to split this up. Because people's assets are not all cash. It's not like you're going to get, X amount and, he's going to get an equal X amount. We have properties that don't all have the same value. We have retirement accounts that don't all have the same value. Some assets need to be tax affected, others don't. So this is definitely a situation where a lot of times we rely heavily on forensic accountants for their knowledge, their expertise, their support, and ensuring that we're doing this in the best possible way for our clients. And what I look for personally is somebody who has the experience, not just the experience in finances, but also the experience in working in the family law arena, because it is different, and also somebody who has that personal touch with clients, because especially when you're going through a divorce, when your entire life feels like it's melting down, you need to be able to feel supported by the experts that you're relying on.
I agree 1,000%. I agree. Can you share an experience of a client that went through that process and how you took them from point A to point C?
So I'll give you a little bit of the opposite situation of your client who didn't work. I represented this lady, long-term marriage, over 20 years of marriage. She's a professional. She earns, a good income of her own, but her husband vastly out-earns her. Business owner who has done very well for himself, and they built this beautiful life together. And now after 20-something years of marriage, they're getting divorced, and she is walking away from this divorce with a substantial sum of money. She's not in a bad financial situation, but her husband always managed the money. Her husband always was the one, ahead of planning for retirement and their investments and all of this. And now she's in charge of her money, and she needs the support, and she needs to be able to talk to somebody and have somebody not just educate her, but guide her through the process. So, in a situation like that, in this type of divorce, I would definitely have a forensic accountant. I would definitely want them to work with a financial advisor to ensure that they're getting the greatest bang for their buck. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's important. But nowadays, as we're living in a new economy where now women are outpacing and out earning what men make, that flip side also happens.
Yeah.
So have you come across instances where you have women clients that are making more money than their spouses, and now how do you address that?
Quite a few, actually. I worked on a case a couple of years ago where my client was a very wealthy woman who owned several businesses, earned, multiple 7 figures every year, and her husband stayed home with the kids because, they didn't both need to work if she was making that much money. And she was the one who was, as we say, on the hook for alimony, and to take, I guess, to put it in gender roles, the traditional male role, because traditionally it was always men who paid alimony, and now that's not the case. We're not fitting into these traditional gender roles anymore.
I agree. Things have changed. We're living in a new world, in a new economy, where women have just as much opportunity as men do in life, and I like that. I appreciate that. In our practice, we've seen a trend of having more women as clients because A, they live longer. B, as you mentioned, they're earning a lot more, outpacing the earning that men are, and also they're living longer. Yeah. So the financial aspect of women and managing their finances is extremely important because at some point also they're going to have to take care of themselves physically and mentally. So I guess that will be part of our next episode where we're going to talk about more into your services and how you work with clients and your practice. So stay tuned to our next episode at Corral Wealth Management, where we like to say retirement and financial confidence starts here. Thank you.